Hey, what's up, y'all? It's Darius from DariusCooks.tv, soon to be the Darius Cooks Plus app. Wanted to pop on here real fast from beautiful, lovely, sunny, could be a little bit warmer, but it's decent, Cabo San Lucas in Mexico. And wanted to finally take some time out and try to get to some questions and answers that I can pop over on my YouTube channel. That way everybody gets an opportunity to see what's going on. One of the questions I get asked a lot is, when are you opening another restaurant, right? So I bought a house in Houston that I paid cash for, and I got so many people saying, yo, are you opening a restaurant in Houston? And I even had some of the Houston restaurateurs reach out to me like, yo, you doing something here? What's up? What you about to do? I'm like, nah, man, I'm just chilling pretty much. So I basically wanted to pop on and do a video about why I will never open. I mean, you're not supposed to, usually, you never say never, but I can probably emphatically say why I will never open another restaurant again. So let's get into the video. So one of the things that I think people think about when they see somebody who's good at cooking, right, is they'll say, you should open a restaurant. I don't care if you are like just starting out, if you do a couple things great. One of the things that we get a lot, we being people who are in food, yo, you should start a restaurant. As if starting a restaurant is the epitome or the pinnacle of the entrepreneurial journey when you are a person who's into food, right? So the reality is that there's so many other things that you could do in the food realm besides open a restaurant. I'm not saying not to open a restaurant because I enjoy going out to restaurants like everybody else. I just think that we need to normalize the idea that if somebody is good at something in the food realm, that the pinnacle of their success should not be thought of or shouldn't be presented as such that it has to be a restaurant, when in fact there are a gazillion other things that a person can do. So, and I know people don't necessarily mean any harm by it when they go open a restaurant, but you're like, yo, but you could do a lot of other stuff. So hopefully this video will shed a little bit of light on some of that and then give some education to people who just maybe not have been aware of what could happen. All right. So I want to hopefully redefine the definition, sort of retailor the conversation around, if you're good at cooking, you don't have to open a restaurant. You can do a bunch of other things. So let's talk about the restaurant. So I had 3 pretty successful restaurants. And I guess when you measure success, we're measuring success, I guess at the 7-figure mark. So let's just call it, the $1 million mark. And I always talk about like, I create 7-figure brands. And so let's use that as an example, as the template as we sort of delve into this conversation. So again, it's pretty cool, huh? Look at that. Wait, did I get it? I can't even see it. Anyway, there's like a motorized 1-seater airplane glider flying over my head. It's interesting. Could never do that. Wow. Okay. So let's talk about restaurants. So for me, I'm defining it as let's just call it $1 million in terms of revenue as a level of success. You might define success differently, but for the sake of the conversation, let's just use that $1 million as the litmus test, as the starting point. When you have a restaurant, there's several things that need to happen in order for a restaurant to run successfully. This could be a large restaurant or it could be a smaller restaurant, and some of these roles can be fulfilled by individuals, by teams, or they can be combined on smaller restaurants and maybe one person is contributing in 2 different factors. But these things are necessary. So we have what's called control points, right? In any business, there's always going to be points of control. Some points are more serious than others. Therefore, some points need more mitigation in terms of risk than others, right? So for example, if I am running a delivery company, one of my control points might be maintenance on my delivery vehicles, because if we don't do routine maintenance, we can't use the vehicles, meaning we can't send packages out, meaning we cripple our business. So that's a very interesting control point you might want to center around. A control point for a logistics company or delivery business that may not be as important is we didn't sweep the floor, right? So maybe, cleaning up the warehouse or cleaning up the office and sweeping the floor is a control point, but obviously not as great of a control point as the other example. So in a restaurant, you have several control points, right? So you need to make sure things like this are being done. You need to make sure that you have your prep team in place to prep everything and portion everything out. Because if that doesn't happen, your line cooks that come in then won't be ready to roll, and you can't service the guest efficiently because the line cooks don't have everything they need, right? Thinking of the amount of volume that you get. So when you get a lot of customers coming through the door, you need to know exactly how much you need to have for, dish A, dish B, and dish C, and a good projection so that guest 1 has the same experience as guest 1200, if that happens to be the case, right? So you got prep, you got your line cooks, your bartenders, they got to be straight in order for a bar to open up successfully and do their pre-opening checklist, closing checklist the night before had to have been done correctly. You need to make sure you have your host and your greeters in place. They need to be trained, ready to go. Your wait staff needs to be in on time. So there's all these little itty bitty control points that are, important to have. Some obviously weigh, as we discuss, more than others. The control points in a restaurant, some are so critical control points that unfortunately you can put systems around it, but you really need a certain level, a certain qualification of skill level to be able to manage that, right? So that's why you hire team leaders, supervisors, managers, directors, things like that, because you're paying them a little bit more for their experience to be able to handle certain things that happen inside of a restaurant. So the control points need to be mitigated in a way that make complete sense, right? So the larger the restaurant, the more critical control points you have, the more skilled talent, skilled human management you need, human capital you need to manage that, right? Okay. Not only thinking about control points, you're thinking about logistics as well, right? In order for prep team to do their job, somebody has to have done inventory. There needs to be a process whereby you're checking what's in stock, what's not in stock, what do we need, what don't we need, what's first in, what's first out, things like that. So you talk about logistics. It doesn't just happen with food, right? What happens if our forks are low, right? Or we don't have any more butter knives, or we've cracked 30% of our glasses, and so now I can't give a cracked glass to a guest, so now I gotta order more glasses. When we first opened, we had 400 plates. Somehow we're only down to 200 plates, and of the 230 of those are cracked. We only got 170 plates. So it's all these other things, right? We need the Stearamine tablets because we need to sanitize the tables when people are done eating. So how many tablets do we have? How much water do we put per bucket, per tablet, so that if a health department associate comes in and they test the pH of the solution, it's strong enough to pass the test. So again, you have all these other little nuances. We need napkins, we need straws, we need menus to be reprinted because the ones that we had got wrinkled, or whatever the case may be, right? So there's all these other little nuances that have to happen. Above that, you have to think about hiring and what we call the talent pool, right? And I don't make the news, I just report it. Sometimes I am the news, but in this case, this is a reality when it comes to frontline workers in certain scenarios. They're not compensated highly because their position doesn't require a lot of skill level in order for that to happen. So that's a good way of saying that when you have employees who don't earn a lot, they're not super invested in what's going on. Not only are they not super invested, but that means that the pool that you have to choose from, it may require you to be a little bit more diplomatic and use a little bit more skill to basically get that talent pool to operate at a level at which you deem to be necessary, right? That's just the given. There are some anomalies. You do find some really great people that don't make a lot of money. And on the reverse is true as well. You might end up in a situation where you're paying somebody 100 grand a year who really ain't that smart at all, you know? So it just depends on where you are. But the talent pool is something to choose from. A lot of restaurants, frontline companies that use frontline workers are struggling right now in the pandemic, because the trend that's happening is that a lot of employees that would be waiters, servers, cashiers, whatever the case might be, they're finding that they're making equivalent, and in many cases more than what they would make working in the restaurant, that they're getting now that they're on unemployment. The stimulus payments are kicking in, things like that, right? So, you know, think about it like this. If I'm working 5 days a week at your restaurant and I'm only making $900 a week, $800, that's a lot of money. Let's take that back. I'm making $400 a week at a restaurant, but I'm getting, with stimulus, unemployment, I'm pulling in $800-900, double that a week. Why would I come back to work? So what you have now is you have, unfortunately, a lack of qualified talent in the talent pool. And for anybody who's worked in HR, talent acquisition, human capital management, it's difficult to take a cluster of people and train them to operate at a level that you deem to be necessary, but then you lose some of the talent pool and now you have to redo all over again. That's time, energy, money wasted to start all over again. But you know, necessary for what has to happen. So not only do we have control points to worry about, logistics to worry about, the talent pool to worry about, but you also have to worry about profit margins. And everybody wants to be in business to make money. Nobody is opening a restaurant as a 501(c)(3). It just doesn't exist, right? You're doing it because you literally want to turn a profit. The thing you have to look at when you have things that are in food, right? So you have restaurants and grocery stores, things like that, is that you're operating on a thinner profit margin. I'll tell you why. Because you're dealing with perishable product, right? So if I get into my establishment, whatever the case may be, a case of lettuce, right? And let's say I don't fully use the entire case of lettuce before it expires, then that means that I'm basically wasting part of the product that I was intended for me to sell, right? Which means that I've already paid for that wholesale. I'm not going to be able to recoup the cost on a retail profit margin template or example. So now what ends up happening is I basically lose that. So that money comes out of what would have been potentially earned as revenue. So now my profit margins decrease because I got to get rid of some of the product, right? Happens all across the board. You've been in grocery stores and you've seen them pulling things off the cart or pulling things, off the shelf, or pulling things out of the meat case because they're expired or they're about to be expired. That eats away at profit margins. And I know you're saying, okay, Darius, well, give me a different example of the opposite. Well, if I was an ashtray manufacturer, I could make 2 million ashtrays, spend a month making 2 million ashtrays. I can box the ashtrays up, and now all I got to worry about is selling a product that seemingly has no expiration date. So that means that whatever I paid wholesale is considered capital, and it's going to flip in a positive direction because at some point, as long as demand is there, I'm going to sell what I originally created. Not the same with a restaurant. It doesn't really work the exact same way in terms of a business model. So those are 4 interesting, really great points to look at. You've got control points, logistics, talent pool, and then your profit margins, which are already super thin for food establishments, but even more so even dealing with restaurants, especially with the pandemic and being closed and that kind of stuff, right? So what becomes the alternative? Darius, you told me all this information. Why do I need to know this, number one, and what does this have to do with you not opening another restaurant? It's a great idea, or a great question, I should say. So I opened up, I had 3 restaurants: Soul Crab Atlanta, Soul Crab Chicago, and Greens and Gravy in Atlanta. So I want to play real fast the video from our grand opening in Chicago for Soul Crab Chicago.
I've been feeling kinda cooped up, cooped up. I'm trying to get some fresh air. Hey, why you got the roof out, roof out? You know it never rains here. Hey, you ain't got a flash when you're taking your picture. I've been in my bag anyway, trying to throw a bag in the sand. You can turn your in bed. Baby, I know what's in I can't be running round that open strip. I need tents, windows, I need tents, windows tint. I can't be flying down that one tent. With the bag in my whip, I need tents. I got way too much to lose, so you're gonna up real quick. I need tents, windows, I need tents, windows tint.
You probably think of controlling or showing out for the cameras. I'm doing fish bowling. 100,000 on the passenger. You about to get offended by the I got on. Like, can you buy that? Now 100 horse, can you drop that? A G5, can you fly that? I need 10 so I can look at the snakes and poses. I need 10 cause Bob is non-disclosure. I need 10 so I can live with a peace of mind without taking a piece of mine and peace be still and not do fine. So fix it, ticket. You pull me over and might see.
Running round that open strip. I need tents, windows, I need tents, windows tint. Windows, I need tents, windows tint.
Great video, great crowd, amazing, right? So here's a couple things that I had to learn the hard way about running a restaurant. One of the things I had to learn the hard way was that I do suffer from anxiety and I do suffer from depression. It's tied into this low testosterone issue that I'm having. And some days are great days, some days are not so great days, but I'm working through with the physician for replacement therapy, right? But another video, another time. Today, we got to think about the fact that all these control points and all these levels of success that we're reaching for requires my attention. And you got to understand what your triggers are. And for me, some of the triggers centered around some of the things that were going on into the restaurant. And I know you're gonna say, well, Darius, just hire somebody, just hire somebody. We did. We had managers who were on duty at all times. I had a director of operations who would fly between Chicago and Atlanta to oversee all restaurant operations. And if something went wrong, instead of reaching out to the individuals who were in place to handle that, you guys would still reach out to me. So you would call me, you would text me, you would inbox me, you would leave comments, and you're like, well, you should know, okay? And I'm like, well, I've got people who can handle that and deal with the situation at hand, but instead of going to them, a lot of you guys chose to come to me. Adding on to the level of stress, right, the level of anxiety, and contributing to the level of depression. So knowing your triggers, you gotta say, all right, cool, what needs to go. Also, it's kind of been a blessing in disguise. When I first closed the restaurants because the depression and anxiety had gotten so bad for me, I was lambasted. I was drugged through the mud, okay? I was hated and scummed, and y'all wanted me dead, basically, okay? So much so that we even had other people who I hadn't spoken to in 11 years, at least 11 years, give interviews to the media about what they felt like was going on in my life, right? Cool. We've come through that. Like, I'm talking about a year later, we are doing amazing and we're doing well. But the reason I say it was a blessing in disguise because a week after I closed the restaurants, COVID hit, right? Everybody got to close the restaurants. And so reopening restaurants has been a tricky situation from state to state because there's different rules and regulations per state. Plus you have the public who's like, I'm not really sure there's something I really need to be doing, going to a restaurant. So you just have struggles and issues trying to make that happen, right? For me, it allowed me to pivot in such a way that I haven't literally missed a beat. And in many ways, doing better financially without the restaurants than I would have done with the restaurant. Granted, COVID helped with some of that stuff, but the pivot has been amazing. So let me try to break this down for you with some real numbers. That way you guys can follow the bouncing ball, because I know that doing this video without being transparent wouldn't really serve its purpose, right? So we at Soul Crab Atlanta, right, for example, we were a $5.6 million restaurant, meaning we would bring in, on average, about between $5 and $6, closer to $6 million annually, right? How's that possible? On a weekly basis, we pull in about $117,000, $125,000 a week in revenue, and that parlayed to about $460,000, $470,000 on an annual basis, which gives you, that times 12, almost $6 million a year. One thing you gotta think about is, in order to generate that kind of revenue, what does it cost you, right? Nothing in life is free, and you can generate your $5 million a year, but what does it cost you to do that? Because you're not generating $5 million a year spending $10, right? There is a capital investment up front that allows you to recoup that cash. So what does that look like? So that looks like, for us, labor cost, food cost, liquor cost, utilities, insurance, and then any sort of fees to states and fees to counties and fees to cities for licenses and whatever, and then incidentals. The fryer broke, or I don't know, the toilet is not working anymore, it got flooded, the TV don't work no more in the bar, the bar gun got stuck, we tried to fix it, the spring came out, now we can't pull orange juice. Any kind of thing could go on in a restaurant that would make you go, now damn, what's up? So with that being said, most restaurants operate between 35 and 45% labor costs. Some, could be as well as up to 60% labor costs. So even though you're making your $5 million a year, it's costing you $2.5 million in payroll costs, right? So that's 40% of what you're generating in revenue. You're already paying 40% in terms of labor costs, right? And that also means not only am I paying your salaries, right, I'm also matching for Social Security, matching for your Medicare. So that's 6.2% of all your eligible wages, 1.45% for Medicare. And then I'm also paying state and federal unemployment. So in many cases, your state unemployment might be 2.7, 3.7% of taxable wages, and then your federal unemployment is 0.6% of taxable wages. But that money comes directly from the employer, not the employee. You feel me? So you've got to factor all that stuff in when you start talking about how much money you're making versus how much money you're spending, yeah? Also, look at your food costs, right? So we're at Soul Crab Atlanta. What are we serving? Crab, lobster, fish, right? Some of the most expensive things you can buy from a food service provider, right? Crab is one of the most expensive items, and there's not really much of a profit margin on crab. So you're banking on everything else, all your non-premium items that you can charge a premium for, you're banking on that to bring in the revenue to bring you up where you are, because you can't make it on crab dishes, lobster dishes, things like that, right? Think about your liquor costs. So liquor is a great way to flip money, because they're doing construction, I'm sorry. Liquor is a great way to flip money because, I could use a house tequila to make your margarita. I can charge you $15 for your margarita, but those 2 shots probably cost me about 70 cents. You know what I mean? So you can look at it that way. In terms of liquor, you can sort of generate a decent amount on. But you've got utilities, you've got rent, you've got insurance, you've got workers' comp, general liability, fire insurance, and then you also got, like I said, fees and incidentals. So while you might be bringing in close to $6 million, you're probably keeping as a profit probably between 10 and 15%, because it costs you 85%. So 85 cents on every dollar that you bring in goes out. You only keep 15 cents of every dollar as a profit, right? And I did not have a salary, so I didn't write myself into the payroll costs. So with that being said, you're operating at 85% expense rate. That's what it costs to run a restaurant, right? Especially a seafood restaurant. Not only that, I think as I bring this to a close, I want you to think about, what I want you to think about is, I want you to think about what kind of lifestyle you might want to live. Oh, here it is right here. Speaking of lifestyle, can you see it? Wait, I can't even see it. Oh, where is he? Oh, there he goes. I think. No, he's over here somewhere. Okay, I don't know where he at. Okay, I can't see no more. Hopefully you guys saw it. I don't know. It's hard to do. It's hard to tell with this camera. But you got to think about the kind of lifestyle you want, right? You have to go, how do I want to live my life? Do I want to be in a situation where I'm working hard, or do I want to work smart? I have this saying, work hard, play smarter, right? And when you have a restaurant, you know, you gotta physically be on site. You gotta physically be there. You can pay somebody all you want to, but that person didn't put up the 200 grand it cost you to open a restaurant. You did. So to recoup on your investment, it's good to keep your eyes on the establishment so that you know exactly what's going on, or create systems that allow you to do the kind of surveillance that you need to do on your business to make sure you are where you need to be. With that being said, I took a step back and I said to myself, how do I want to live, man? What do I want to do with my life? And how do I mean, you got to live, you got to be on earth, you got to be alive. So if you're going to do it, how do we do it on terms that make sense for us? And what does that look like? And so here we are saying, you know, I enjoy traveling, I enjoy, you know, real estate, I enjoy eating good food, I enjoy the good life. In the words of Joan Rivers, I like to live well. To do that, it's a collaboration between mind, between body, and between spirit and soul that really puts you on the playing field for saying, I'm going to live well. For me, it was saying, what do I need to do and how do I need to operate in my business to make sure I'm living the life that I want to live, right? And so in doing that, for me, $1 million is the magic number. If I don't have $1 million cash in the bank, I'm broke, and I feel broke. That's just me. Personally, it's just how I operate, all right? You might be a little bit different, but your goals are your goals, my goal is my goal. But I feel like I need $1 million cash in the bank. So how can I create a business model where I'm generating millions consecutively year after year after year without doing that much work, all right? And so the restaurants just kind of wasn't it for me, because again, you can generate millions, but you're not keeping millions. You're generating 6 million, you're keeping 15% of that, right? That ain't what's up. Whereas you got all the headaches tied up in that 85%. You got all the sleepless nights in the 85%. You got all the tears in the 85%. You got all the blood and the sweat in the 85%. I don't want to live. I want to live like this. I want to live well. How do we do that? So pivoting allowed me the space to do that, right? So now I have a business model whereby, sure, it will cost me money up front to be able to recoup, or to be able to do what I need to do. But when I recoup the funds, am I recouping at an 85% expense rate where I'm keeping 15% of the profit margin? Or have we figured out how we could do more with less? And that is exactly what we've done. So with this whole Darius Cooks empire I'm building, I guess you call it an empire, I don't know. I'm building where I have cookbooks and kitchen equipment, pots, pans, knives, glasses, decanters, you know, all this other stuff. Sure, now we can generate millions, and guess what we're doing? Our profit margins are not 15%. Now we're operating at a 75 to 80% profit margin. So that means that of every dollar we bring in, 80 cents goes in the bank, 20 cents goes out to whatever it needs to go out to. So 80% profit margin, still pulling in not 6 million, let's just be conservative and call it 2 to 3 million, right? 2 to 3 million, but I don't have to deal with 110 employees. I don't have to deal with employees, you know, a talent pool situation where I'm suffering because of the labor workforce. I don't have to deal with, you know, unnecessary control points that, you know, now are causing me headache and anguish because they're not being managed properly. I don't have to deal, you know, with the logistics issue of making sure we have enough straws and napkins and napkin rings and this, that, and the third. We got to deal with none of that shit, right? Also, like I said, the profit margins are so much better than running a restaurant. So for me, that is the exact reason why I don't and will never ever open up another restaurant. Now, if I ever get bored one day and I say, I should do a fish fry pop-up, something like that. Now, I might do that. You see what I'm saying? Rent somebody's restaurant out for a day, cook some collard greens, make some cornbread, do to-go plates, just because I felt like doing something. You know what I'm saying? That could be a complete possibility if I feel like it. I might do that, actually. Just came up with that idea right here. If I get bored one day, you know, and I feel like being in somebody's kitchen, you know, I'm sure one of my restaurant friends on here would let me borrow their kitchen for a random Wednesday afternoon. But I'm in a much better place. And for me, that's the way I want to do it. I want to operate with clarity. I want to operate what I've manifested in a much better scenario where you can relax, you can breathe, and you can enjoy it so much more than you could in other scenarios. Again, I'm not wishing bad on anybody who has a restaurant. I got a bunch of buddies who are in the restaurant business who are doing phenomenally well. But I'm in a much better position where I'm operating a little bit more smarter and not working as hard as I used to work. So hopefully this 30 minutes we've been on here having this conversation is giving you some insight as to why I will never open up another restaurant again. Shed a little bit of light on the way you can look at a business model, form your business in such a way that you work in your business a couple of hours a day, but you can still generate your millions and still go live your life on your terms with your freedom and your level of flexibility. And then, yes, I did allude to a couple of things that are coming up down the pipeline. So we're working on a Darius Cooks Plus app that's going to be amazing. More details soon when it's ready to go. It'll be on both Google Play and the Apple Store. I've got some things coming. I've got a pressure cooker, Darius Cooks pressure cooker, a Darius Cooks air fryer. I got a Darius Cooks 7-piece enameled pot set, beautiful, off-white with the gold handle, gorgeous. I've got beautiful asymmetrical wine glasses and decanters coming so you can drink in style. Got the apron line coming out so you can be cute while you cook or be fly while you fry. And I've got the Darius Cooks kitchen knife set coming out, and cutting board, and the Darius Cooks knife sharpener, along with everything else you see on the site. And we're working on 3 new books right now. One is a pressure cooker cookbook. One is a air fryer cookbook, and the last one is going to be a cocktail and appetizers cookbook. So we got some really great things popping off, happening. This is just the beginning of, you know, this empire being built. We got the new warehouse space. We're still doing Carolina pound cakes. So I'm good. Life is great. I'm great. Just have to take a step back and sort of reassess how I wanted to live my life and the terms I wanted to live them on, so I could still make my millions and maintain my millionaire status, but, you know, maintain my millionaire status while I'm fly as fuck. You understand? Hopefully so. So there's your answer. Thank you for listening. If you made it through these 32 minutes and some change on the video, love you and appreciate you. There's 2 things I want to tell you guys, as I always do. Very simply, food is my life. Life, it is my food. And until next time, I do want to wish you happy cooking, happy dreaming, happy manifesting, most importantly, happy pivoting from my heart to yours. Bye, y'all.